伟大、光荣、正确的中国共产党万岁!
This July 1st, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China was celebrated in a very high-profile manner in Beijing. But at the same time, there were many unusual signs that suggest Beijing was divided and that the Communist Party, led by Xi Jinping, is in crisis. In the run-up to the party's celebration in late June, a video on the internet showed the authorities mobilized a large number of police and military forces in Beijing. The video showed large buses parked near the National Stadium, one of the main venues for the celebration, taking up half of the road and filling up the entire stadium square. The buses were carrying military personnel in camouflage uniforms and were armed with guns. Some media reported that there were more than 200 of these buses, and military vehicles with artillery were seen on the streets. The city also closed roads and rerouted traffic early. Beijing netizens said that drones, toy planes, kites, balloons, and pigeons were banned in 9 administrative areas. Manhole covers and sewers near the Tiananmen Square were inspected and sealed, and the residential areas near the square were asked to close windows and draw curtains until further notice. All of the neighborhood committees also stepped up their patrols, wearing red armbands and monitoring every movement of people in the community. Police officers with police dogs were seen in large numbers in many Beijing neighborhoods. Some residents said it was as if Beijing had imposed martial law. Some Beijing residents have pointed out online that armed police officers were also standing guard in subway stations. The purchase of knives by local residents was controlled. Stores in the Donghuamen and Wangfujing areas were forcibly closed. Natural gas supply was stopped in the controlled areas, and people were forbidden to cook with fire. Parcels sent to Beijing were heavily inspected, resulting in mass delay. Despite unprecedented efforts to maintain stability, an online video shows a man setting fire at the entrance of the Chinese Foreign Ministry in Beijing's Chaoyang district on June 28th, a scene witnessed by many. After the fire was extinguished, the man, suspected to be a petitioner, was taken away from the scene by 2 security guards, shouting at the top of his lungs. No official report or statement has been made on the incident. On June 22nd, the National Stadium held a rehearsal for the fireworks display, which was reported to have cost 70 million yuan, or more than $10 million. Although the officials were well prepared, the weather was not ideal, with extreme weather in Beijing on June 30th, including thunderstorms, heavy rain, and hail. The CCP's centennial celebration was scheduled for June 29th. According to Xinhua News Agency, on the evening of June 28th, top party and state leaders attended the performance, including CCP leader Xi Jinping, Li Keqiang, Li Zhanshu, Wang Yang, Wang Huning, Zhao Leji, Han Zheng, Wang Qishan, and more. According to reports, 8 retired members were absent, including former CCP leader Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, Zhu Rongji, Wu Bangguo, Wen Jiabao. Some commentators said the absence of the 8 former members of the Standing Committee from the performance night may be an act of resistance against the Xi Jinping-centered system, or they may be unable to attend due to health reasons. On July 1st, Xi Jinping spoke at the Tiananmen Square without Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji, while former leaders Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao showed up. The video footage of the event shows that top officials of the Chinese Communist Party were on the Tiananmen, and all of them were wearing suits, except for Xi Jinping, who stood out in a gray Maoist-style Zhongshan suit. Many speculate that Xi Jinping's deliberate wearing of a Mao suit on the party's anniversary may in fact be a political symbol, an imitation of Mao's look, signaling a left turn back to the Mao era. Zhou Xiaozheng, a retired professor from Renmin University of China, told Radio Free Asia that Xi Jinping is completely positive about Mao Zedong and has put himself alongside him. However, some also pointed out that the number of bodyguards around Xi Jinping has increased significantly, and that he may be wearing a bulletproof vest under his heavy Mao suit to prevent assassination. Since the 18th National Congress, Xi Jinping has worn a Mao-style suit at the 2015 Victory Day Parade, the 2019 Military Parade on Qingdao, and the 2019 National Day Parade. The French newspaper Le Monde reported that there were about 70,000 representatives in Tiananmen Square, including celebrities, outstanding party members, and model workers, who had been vetted by the authorities. Before Xi Jinping climbed the Tiananmen Tower, the crowd in the square was calm, but when Xi Jinping arrived, the entire atmosphere changed. Hu Jintao, former leader of the CCP, was assisted by bodyguards into Tiananmen Square with Xi Jinping. This reminded people of Hu's absence from the performance night on June 28th and raised the question, is Hu physically unwell, or does he not have the power to resist attending in order to show support for Xi Jinping? The same goes for Wen Jiabao, the former premier who was relatively well liked by the Chinese people, yet stayed in an inconspicuous corner of the crowd. All of these phenomena give the impression of tension and undercurrent within the Communist Party. Xi Jinping said in his speech that China has never bullied, oppressed, or enslaved other people, and that he would not allow foreign forces to oppress China. He also touted the Communist Party's successes, including curbing the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, eliminating poverty, and firmly suppressing dissent in the former British colony of Hong Kong. Xi said, "The Chinese people will never allow any foreign power to bully, oppress, or enslave us, and anyone who attempts to do so will be left bleeding in front of the Great Iron Wall built with the flesh and blood of more than 1.4 billion Chinese people." As he said this, the stiff crowd in the square suddenly stirred up. The phrase immediately went viral on the Chinese internet, with more than 140 million hits by that night. Many netizens suspected that Xi Jinping was dropping hints of war and revealed that the Communist Party would sacrifice its people to preserve itself if necessary. But the posts were quickly deleted, leaving only the content that glorified the CCP. The international reaction to the CCP's celebration was also interesting. On June 25th, a bipartisan group of US lawmakers introduced a resolution to condemn the Chinese Communist Party for a series of historical abuses, with mentions of the Chinese land reform, the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, the persecution of Falun Gong, the suppression of Hong Kong, the suppression of Tibetans, the crime committed in Xinjiang, and more. The resolution also paid tribute to the tens of millions of victims of communist tyranny and expressed the United States' solidarity with the Chinese people. Russia, who's considered an old friend of China, also took a somewhat different stance this time, as Russian President Vladimir Putin held a video meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the afternoon of June 28th. The video showed Xi and Putin first waving hello. Then Xi said to Putin with a big smile on his face, "My dear old friend, I am very happy to have a video meeting with you." Then Putin responded, "This year is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China, and I congratulate you in my personal capacity." Xi Jinping then responded, "This is the blessing and support from a good neighbor and a true partner, and China is deeply grateful." Many commentators saw Putin's remarks as an attempt to distance himself from Xi Jinping. According to Chinese official media, Xi Jinping and Putin issued a joint statement during the meeting. The two sides renewed the 2001 Sino-Russian Treaty of Friendship for another 5 years, and resolved the historical border issue, reassured no territorial conflicts, and looking forward to permanent peace and friendship between China and Russia. The 2001 Sino-Russian Treaty of Friendship was signed by Jiang Zemin and Vladimir Putin in July 2001, when Jiang gave up at least 1.5 million square kilometers of Chinese territory along the Russian-Chinese border in exchange for Russian support. In addition, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un did not congratulate the CCP immediately. The Korean Workers' Party published an editorial congratulating the CCP on its 100th anniversary on July 1st, but Kim Jong-un did not offer his congratulations until that evening. Chen Guangcheng, a famous Chinese human rights lawyer now in the US, said the party's celebration was more significant to the Communist Party than National Day. The absence of both Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao from the event indicates that the conflict between the interest groups that they represent has reached an irreconcilable level. Chen also believes that North Korea's performance is more indicative of the fact that Kim Jong-un and the Chinese Communist Party have long been at odds with each other, and that North Korea has openly criticized the CCP more than once for deviating from its original intentions in recent years. The bigger problem behind this is that the Communist Party, like its members, has lost its cohesion and relying only on ties of interest to keep each other together. Prior to the July 1st celebration, the CCP held its first July 1st Medal Award ceremony on June 29th to honor party members who have made outstanding contributions to the party and created valuable spiritual wealth. According to the list of recipients announced by Xinhua News Agency on May 31st, there are 29 people, aged from 30 to 100 years old, and none of them were at the top levels of the CCP. In March, a commentary in Hong Kong's Minpao newspaper suggested that former CCP leader Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao were eligible for the July 1st medal because they invented the three represents and the scientific outlook on development, respectively, which were written into the party's constitution as creating spiritual wealth. However, they were not included in the list of possible award candidates. Commentator Wen Zhao said the government's decision to grant a medal to a sitting leader or a former leader in his home country is commonplace internationally. But in the case of the Chinese Communist Party, if Xi Jinping had given the medal when Jiang and Hu were still alive, it would have meant that Jiang and Hu's status would have been recognized by Xi Jinping, which means that Xi's authority is higher than Jiang and Hu's. The fact that it didn't happen means that Jiang and Hu are still firmly established and Xi Jinping is not that powerful.